Hi there, how are you?
Hi, I'm well. Welcome.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I'm just so happy to be here. I'm so excited. Denise, today is the day. How are you feeling? Launch day's finally here.
I mean, when you think about it, I started writing this 7 years ago, and I write elsewhere 7 years in the thinking, the reflecting, and along the way, two other books have come out, and my doctorate and everything. But it's just like it's truly grown. It's truly grown, and it's just so good to have it out there now.
It's great. And this is your 10th book. I can't believe it, your 10th book. That's amazing. Now I know kind of latest books. So Your Hired Work at 50 Plus, Rethinking Retirement for Positive Aging, Career Coaching for Midlife and Beyond. I know those books really well.
Mm.
But what was the first book that you ever wrote?
Right. Well, the very, very first one was How to Get a Job in a Recession. And I'd been on Tonight with Trevor McDonald as the guest expert helping graduates get a job. And the director said, you need to write a book. So I did. And publishers were telling me it was going to be 18 months. So that was independent publishing in 2008. And then after that, I got eight commissions to write. And I brought out a second edition of How to Get a Job in a Recession because it was, it was time to update it. But as you know, find work at 50 plus 10 years ago. So everything you hear about now about that, I was writing about, you were reading about it, you were both working in it. It's not new. It's just spoken about more, I think, now.
I think that's right. And I think the principles, kind of marketing yourself, brand you, kind of networking and exploring the employment landscape, a lot of those principles are the same. AI might have changed a few things or messaging might have changed, but absolutely. So yeah, a lot of the principles are the same. And I know that you wrote much of this book in your woodland in Gloucestershire, beautiful Gloucestershire. And I just wondered, being there, how did it make you think differently or feel differently?
Okay. I mean, I wrote this straight after writing a more conventional book, Career Coaching for Midlife and Beyond. And I love that book. That book is so useful for anybody working with that particular just get it focused in. I think people know about that book. So that was written very conventionally. I had a really good publisher, a really good editorial team. And to begin with, I was writing ThriveSpan in a similar way with chapters. But last year I took 3 months as a sabbatical. It was like, do I want to carry on working? I've been working crazy, 52 years full-time work. And it was, maybe I need to do something different. And spending a lot of time in the wood, walking down the deer paths and just really being rather than doing. And that's when it came to me. I think it was in my hammock under the trees was, these are not sections, these are paths. And these are not chapters, these are glades. And let's weave in as much of the analogies to do with woodlands as you can. And I mean, I did take some of them out because I thought it's going to just be a bit more like a nature book. But it was being able to spend more time in the wood that gave me a different way of thinking. And instead of having exercises, it was gentle reflections because I didn't want it to have the feel of a business book. I wanted it to be something, if it's a gentle invitation, do it or not. That's it's just offering. It's an offer.
It's an offer. I mean, I live on the edge of the Forest of Dean, as you know, and the forest, it just gives you a place to reflect, and it makes you think differently and holistically. And almost, I think what happens when you're in a woodland is you forget all of the other things that surround you, all the other things that are happening in life. So it is a really good place just to kind of step back and think about life.
I find, because I go to the wood because it's like I don't want to do any more work. I want to just like be, and then I'm picking up logs and moving things around, but I'm not thinking. It's like my head is just, I'm touching the earth, I'm touching branches, I'm moving them, I'm looking at the deer and stuff like that, and then that just allows a completely different part of my brain to come out. And everybody can spend time in nature, but I think there's something about having your own wood when there's nobody there but you and the wildlife, and that's just so special to me.
I think all the senses as well are used, aren't they? Hearing and seeing, and and the fauna and the flora, and just different seasons. I love different seasons and different times of the day. It feels so different when you're there. And yes, and I've been in your woodland and seen the bluebells, and it's absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah, the bluebells, special.
I know. So you often say that later life has become a distinct stage of life in its own right. What exactly do you mean by that?
If I think back to when I was 16 and working for ICI, I always remember somebody retiring and he just left with his box of stuff and golf clubs. And I'm sure I heard him say, and maybe I imagined it, but I've never played golf. But it was the sort of thing that people did on retirement. So, that was the conventional sort of retirement. And then I think there's a lot of people now who are talking about, the 60s, 70s as times where you're basically just going to carry on working. Why would you stop? But I don't see it as an extension of midlife. I think it's definitely a period of its own. And I came across this during the research for my doctorate, and I've continued to do that. And, they were talking about 60 to 75, but I think the more I went deeper, it's like things are changing a bit, and I think it's more like 60 to 80. So I'll often talk about this being these golden years, and carry on working if that's what you want and you're choosing to do it, but don't make that the default. So you carry on working until you can't work anymore, because you've basically just gone tired, you're worn out, and maybe your knees are gone and your back's gone, and you've missed this time to do what you want. So for me, and I've written an academic paper all about it, and I continue to research in this area, it's how do you want this phase of life to be? Because when you hit 80 plus at some stage, you are going to be an old age. But how do you want it to be? And of course, you might want to set up your own business and become an entrepreneur and do a whole range of things. Or you might be a bit more like I am, which is a bit more reflective and have a more, I guess they call it a balanced life, but just have to do with the things I want to do, not the things I feel compelled to do.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, we've spoken before, haven't we, kind of about ages and life stages and big events. So they might steer you in different things. But I think as somebody who's 61, I'm living, it doesn't feel like midlife. It feels different, so it's, and the way I think just everything feels very different to kind of when I was 50. And I think that's really interesting. And I think as well that people need to, it's like, what does success look like for you? Or what, not even success, what does lifing look like for you? It's very bespoke and very individual, and depends on kind of the decades ahead, sometimes depend on the decades before, don't they?
Yeah, indeed. And you can change. So the person you are, Sarah, today at 61 may well be different to the Sarah of 65 and the Sarah when you're my age as well, and the Sarah at 75. So it's not like it's like, well, this is my future and I've made a choice and I've got to stick at it. It's absolutely what's right for me right now. And that's why it's often really good to reflect, because if you spend all your time doing and not reflecting, you don't allow your brain and your mind and your body just to think about, this is what's right for me. Maybe I need to slow down more in some things. Maybe I need to listen to my body more, rather than think I can still push on, because maybe you can, but maybe you can't, or maybe you shouldn't.
I think you're right. And I think work, or if you've been working a lot, and then it's almost that retiring off a cliff. It's one extreme transition wise to another, isn't it? It's being busy as anything to nothing. And it's almost, there's just a temptation to carry on being busy and achieving things and doing things, and because that's kind of what we're wired today to do, isn't it? In kind of today's society, kind of 24/7 society.
I don't think you knew me when I turned 65, but at 65, I went to the wood and I did 24 hours there. And I'd asked loads of people who knew me to either write some words about what they thought about me, or a poem, or a reading out of a book. And I took them all with me, and some people said really nice things about where we'd met, or how I inspired them, or whatever. And I spent the night sleeping in my hammock, and I woke up in the morning and I'd lit a fire, and I took a drum, and I was sort of burning and stuff. It's a little ritual, really. But I was reading what everybody had said. And I spent the next 24 hours just really thinking about my life ahead. And I think that was really good, about just taking a bill of time out. And I know my family thought it was the most bizarre way to spend your 65th birthday, but they always think I'm a bit bizarre anyway in various ways. But it was that time out. And for somebody else, it might be, you know what, I'm just going to go to this really fancy spa, and that's going to be my time out. Not everybody wants to be in a hammock and do, wild wheeze and stuff like that. But it was a time out, And I've done that at various points. As I said, I did it last summer as well. Just to, is this where I'm heading? Is this right for me? And to think about what's right for me, not thinking so much about other people as well.
Yeah, the beauty of being in those, those decades, 60, or those decades, 60 to 80, because yes, suddenly what everybody else thinks just doesn't matter as much. And I think that's a huge game changer, isn't it? So, so what do you think people in later life are really searching for now?
Well, if you read online, they all want meaning and purpose. And because this is my research area, I unpick a lot of things. And, purpose can be anything, going to the shops, working, anything can give you purpose. Yeah. But it's what gives you meaning. And I don't think that we should conflate them together, because I wrote a Substack post, and I think it's been my most popular one about finding your purpose. Because people are looking for this big thing, you're going to lift up this boulder, there's your purpose. And it's like just spending time saying hello to people as you walk down the street is purpose. Thinking about listening to somebody younger as they talk about their fears and not giving them the answer and not telling them what to do because they need to find it for themselves, but just being there for them. And I think meaning in later life is made up of all these little small things rather than I've got to find it. I've not had it all my life so far, and what's going to give it for me? Or you often get people saying, well, I had it through work, so how am I going to, what's going to take its place? Well, more work, and sometimes the work's not necessarily paid. It's, well, I'll just, spend my years doing good works and babysitting, which again, if that's what people want to do, that's fine. But and sometimes people just fill in their days with voluntary work.
Being busy, doing voluntary work.
Yeah, being busy. Stops you thinking when you're busy.
Absolutely. And did writing ThriveSpan change you personally? I know it's kind of been not a lifetime, but it's been an endeavor, hasn't it, over the last 7 years? So it's kind of been forming and kind of building in you. But has it changed? Has it changed you personally?
I think there's been 3 main changes since turning 60. And one was the decision to end my marriage, not really realizing what I was letting myself in for. And that was challenging in different ways. Then it was finding out about the Vision Quest and going on a Vision Quest and training as a Vision Quest guide. But I think the third one is this decision to write this book and to properly look into it. And I think what's happened since writing the book is, in different ways, I've changed. It's almost like it's changed my DNA. And it started with the Vision Quest. I've just got such a deep connection to nature. I mean, I'm standing there outside now. It's going to rain in 10 minutes, and it does. And I'm like this wild woman in some way. But I've got a much, much stronger connection to nature. And I think I've slowed down. I'm a lot more thoughtful about the things I make. And my writing has got a lot deeper as well. I think, if I'm honest, previously I wrote because I needed to. It's like, you've got to write your newsletter. Whereas now it's, what is it that I want to say? And sometimes I can write something, put it to one side and look at it, go like, that's not what I want to share. I've got all sorts of articles that are just not right now, and I don't think they'll ever be right, but they were right 3 months ago when I wrote them, because I've gone deeper. And I think that ThriveSpan has led to me. It's to go deeper into these different areas and to become more of something this is one way of aging. Clearly there's people can age in whatever way they want to, but the more thoughtful, deeper, let's see about how you want to connect with the world is what seems to be the way I'm heading now.
Yeah. I think I can see that, you know, in your Substack and some of your writing, it is really thought-provoking and it's deep and just insightful, and but it's kind of not exercises or process, it is more reflections, isn't it? And it's deep, but it's light in a way. And I think I've really noticed that in your writing over the last, you know, I know you've been thinking about ThriveSpan for a long time, but over the last 12 months, I've really noticed, and that break from doing some of the work that you were doing before, that break that you had last summer, that there is a lot of depth, or you've got more time to do writing. And I think we've spoken about it before, but writing something that you absolutely love, it's in your DNA, it's one of your greatest strengths and your greatest love, and you're spending a lot of time doing that. And that's so you're spending a lot of time doing the things that you're great at and you love doing, which is wonderful. You know, that's good life.
Because it's interesting in thinking about the work I did before with career coaching, because it wasn't like it was back-to-back clients, but with all of them, when anybody works for yourselves, you know, there's the whole getting a client, the whole marketing and following up and following up and following up. And then you've got clients, it's preparing for them. And then have they done the work they need to do and following up and summarizing and this, that, and the other. And I was not aware of just how much of my head that was taking up. So take clients out of my head and there's all this space. And I think that's something for other people to think about is you've got headspace. So how do you want to fill it? And clearly you don't have to fill it with everything. You can just, you know, just allow whatever appears. But it was something that I'm just so glad. I'm just so glad. And if it's only when another friend called Sarah said to me, well, who was a doctor and she's 10 or so years younger than me. And she was talking about retirement. She goes like, well, how long have you been working? And I said, 52 years. And she goes like, so why aren't you retired? I'd never thought of it because I'd always thought I'd just carry on working for as long as my brain kept going. And that's almost like throwaway line that led to all these changes.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of narrative around, isn't it? It's like work longer, save more. Do you know what I mean? There's all of that narrative. So we're almost swept down that thou shalt work longer and longer and longer. And it's, you know, you can change your life or downsize your life, or, you know, that there are kind of other options. So yeah, I think that's really interesting. So if somebody's feeling lost or uncertain in later life, where would you suggest they begin? That's a big question.
In a way, it's what I've just said. It's about taking a time out. It's about not feeling that you've got to do anything, but to feel about, well, what just feels right for me. And I do think it's really useful when people take a year or so just to explore things that they can do, but also to explore the person that they are. And indeed, when I was doing my doctoral research, I was only utilising individuals who've been retired at least 2 years, because those first 2 years are in a state of flow. It's like people are not quite sure where they are. But I think it's if like people are not sure, it's often the conversation is having early on while you're still in full-time work. And I think it's useful to get a thought about, you know, what is it that I'm going to do in the future? And I know we're going to come on to it later. So maybe I should just say something about it now, about how I've got these gifts for if people, you know, when people buy the book early and they let me know. And one of them is getting people to think of their future in 3 different ways. Because if somebody is, you know, reading the book and watching this now and they're 50 or 60 and they're wondering about the future, it's like, well, this is my future at how I see it life at 60 or 70. That's how I think it's going to go. But then alternatives as well. And how I was thinking of it is, one alternative is, well, what happens if it doesn't go like you think it's going to go, you know, problems with health or wealth or something. And what happens if everything just really takes off? You just start this business and suddenly there's some big buyout. But you can have as many versions as you want. And I know I sent it to you in advance, didn't I?
That was so impactful. So there was kind of 3 paths, you know, that life can take, and it was really useful for me. And I'm going to live this big life and everything's going to happen, but you know, I need to think about the other 2 options if something happens to my health or wealth. And so it was really interesting, and I'm this optimist who kind of, you know, flies off. So to look at those 3 paths was really interesting. But the other thing that I found is with my mum, it was really interesting for her to think about, because even, because her path perhaps is narrowing slightly, or, she can't do the things that she used to do, but just having a look at those 3 paths was, extraordinary. It was really, really impactful and so useful for what might what life might look like, or looking at things that you might avoid looking at or don't want to look at, and anyway, I wish I'd had that for every decade I'd hit. Actually, it would have been really useful to have that when I was 20, when I was 30, when I was 40, all of the decades. It was a really, really brilliant tool just to put yourself, imagine yourself in different scenarios.
So the last thing, you see other people and they bring a book out and there's bonuses, and I never wanted to be this book that everybody has to buy in this certain hour just so I could get an Amazon bestseller badge, because that didn't seem in line with who I am. But I did thought, well, if you're thinking of buying it anyway, buy it in the first 10 days, because you get these things. And I think we're going to talk about them at the end, aren't we? Rather than sorry, I'm interrupting your flow.
No, that's fine. So I tell you what I wanted to talk about as well is identity. So lots of people spend decades being known by their job, title, business, professional role in the family. And what happens when those identities start to shift, do you think? This is a huge one.
I know, but if we think about, I keep on moving around in my chair. It's like,
I think I'm just going nearer and nearer to the screen. Apologies.
I'm just conscious of it. Yeah. So our identity. I mean, it's absolutely throwing it down now.
Oh, is it? Oh, it's beautiful and sunny here in the Forest of Dean.
It's lashing.
Different climate to you there in Cheltenham. There you go.
In Cheltenham, right? So if we think about our identity. Yes, part of your identity is your job. Gosh, this is taking me back to being a careers coach. Like I'm an accountant, and I used to say to people, because if I say I'm a psychologist, that means nothing to people. So I used to teach people about, talk more about what you actually did as part of the job. But you also, there's family relationships. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a theatre goer, I'm this, that, and the other. But if we are too aligned with our job, then you don't have your job. And it's saying, well, what am I? And it might be, so if I just use me as an example, well, I'm a volunteer at the Wilson, which is the art and museum in Cheltenham. I'm a volunteer at a memory cafe, working with people with dementia. I'm part of a theatre group, but I'm a woodland owner. So I think that would probably trump everything else, I'm a woodland steward, I used to call it. So we can have our identity in different ways. And I think it's, how do you want to describe? And I think it's years back. Now, this is going back 40 years. I was running pre-retirement seminars for Royal Mail, and they were very much ahead in a whole range of different ways. But we used to take people 2 to 3 years before retirement. And one of the things I would say to them, and I was only 27.
I know, it's funny how you're in those retirement seminars in your early 20s or late 20s.
Yeah, looking like a child and saying, well, you're no longer going to be able to say that you're a postman. So what are you going to say who you are? Honestly, we had them in little groups talking about things 40 years ago. So this question about what's my identity, it's nothing new. It's nothing new. But we sometimes we need to step into something, because I think possibly the difference between if you're in a lesser skilled job to if you're a highly qualified and competent professional, then wow, everybody looks up to you because you are whatever. So then it's about developing something else and thinking about, do you need a sort of a work thing to give you identity, or will there be something else? And, it's, people are different. People do things different ways. But if you are so aligned with your job, then it's going to be, how do I come out of it? So quite a few people I know seem to do it. They're very much joining choirs, and they get a lot of satisfaction from being part of a choir, and they would lead with that as their identity. And I know quite a few people who do African drumming or samba drumming as well. And there's something, but what they've all got in common is they're all community. They're all, I'm no longer the community at work, but I'm now the community of the singing group, or they all seem to be musical things that I hear about, but clearly they're just the people I associate with.
I think community is absolutely key. So it's that connection or that kind of belonging in a way. And what about, do you think later, some of the work I do, I look at people in their early decades, and do you think you become somebody new, at 60 or 70, or do you think you become more fully yourself? What's your view on that?
I think it could be a bit of both, because I think if anybody's listening, if you think about how you are and you started your first job, particularly your first managerial job, and it's about fitting in, I had to become really much more outgoing, and certain bits of your personality gets praised and other bits they don't like, and your whole behavior more than just your personality. So you step into what they want, so you get the next promotion. And then sometimes you can find that's all exhausting. It might hit you at 50, but at some point it's like, but that was never me. So at some point in later life, and when you said about it's a stage, not an age, it's not this hits you on your 60th birthday. Yeah. It could hit you at any time.
Yeah, I agree.
At any age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah, no. So at that point, it's this is the person I want to be now. And sometimes the people around you might not like it, because if you suddenly start putting up some boundaries, because you've had very lax boundaries in the past, and but sometimes it's about who do I want to be stepping forward, and sometimes it can be there's bits of you from your teen years that you want to incorporate. Sometimes it's bits that just got hidden away, and maybe it is about being the more thoughtful you. And who'd have thought I'd a woodland owner? I mean, it was, and join a theatre group and things, there weren't things I planned to do, but you get the opportunity and it's like, that sounds interesting, let me find out more. And so you've got an opportunity to be pretty much whoever you want to be. Yeah. And often the only thing that stops you is you. And we're back to sort of the self-ageism, because if you think I'm too old to do it, or nobody's going to want me because of my age, then your brain just looks for all these, yeah, you're right, it just looks for all these examples. And when I was on the radio on Saturday talking about can you still learn in later life, and they'd asked me, because Natalie Cassidy of EastEnders, I think, has trained to be a carer, and she was finding the studies hard because she'd never done anything like that before. And so they're asking me as a psychologist. So, I mean, that's something else I can put a link to that people can listen to. But afterwards, when I was saving it to record it and I'd let it carry on, and a 77-year-old had phoned in, and he said he'd done, it was either 11 or 15 AI certifications. And he was now learning Chinese. And it was like, what a wonderful example of nothing stopping him. And fair play to him. And I'd have loved to sort of say something personal to him, because that was just so great that he's doing that.
That's amazing. I think midlife, there's that melange of many things at midlife. And I think in my personal experience, again, I've come to kind of that 7th decade, I guess it is, and suddenly focus, or there is more room in my brain for things that there wasn't before. So learning, which is something that I used to do, you know what I mean? That there is more time for that, and I'm enjoying it more. And it's really fascinating how you can get into things. And I think, I think that's really interesting. And I think there are stereotypes, though, aren't there, about later, greater lifing and whether you can learn. But of course we can. Just as much. There's the whole crystallized wisdom, isn't there, versus fluid intelligence as well.
Yeah. I spoke about that on the radio as well. Well impressed. Well impressed that I was bringing that in, because, and I use the analogy of, as we get older, our brain's a bit like overstuffed filing cabinets. So we've got the information in, we've just got to, we need to find it. So actually, one of the things that really helps is about this time out that we have, just going gently somewhere, and that allows your filing cabinet to sort of sort itself out. And I'm not quite sure we can actually chuck out bits of our life memory, but you can sort it to make it easier to retrieve the bit that you want.
I'm right. Actually, my daughter's doing her A-levels at the moment, poor thing, and it's all that, all of that information that's in your brain at the moment, which you won't need, in 4 weeks time, or she will need maybe some of it, but it is, you're trying to put all of those things in your brain and she'll be able to let it go. And we can, I think we need to make sure that the things in our brain, or the things that we're thinking about or focusing on, are things that are important, rather than, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff that isn't important, that doesn't really matter, or there's a lot of things that aren't right. Do you see what I mean? Or myths that are in our brain, which would be good to get rid of those as well.
But it's externally as well. And something I did when I went through this really intensive period with the book was I was unsubscribing all over the place, because
I remember doing that.
It was like, I don't even want this to come into, into my orbit. And because I was putting them all into a folder and then deleting them, but I was still like glancing at them. And I've narrowed down because I'm widely curious, and it's like, but I don't need to know all of this. So I was cutting back, and it's like, now this is the area that I'm going to focus on as I move forward in life. And so, that's interesting, and that's interesting, but I'll let other people comment on that. I'm going to go for depth now, rather than keep learning, reading everything, because there was just too much, and I'd rather focus. And particularly when I had all these technical stuff going on with the book that I wasn't aware I needed to do. But there you go, learning.
Yeah, and tell me about that, because you self-published this. So you've had all these. Yes, you did speak about it earlier, but you've had all of these books and worked with publishers and been through that process. But you did it yourself this time. So your first one you did yourself, is that right? And then others you haven't, and then this one you did. I mean, wow, there's some learning for you.
Yeah, and I thought I knew what to do. Clearly, I didn't. But there's
yes, you did. Look, here it is. You did know what you were doing.
Yeah, but what I did do was, it was really important. It was professionally done. So when I'd done Rethinking Retirement, and when I'd done Career Coaching for Midlife and Beyond, both of them used the same production company. And I contacted them and I said, do you work with independents? And they said, we can do. So, but this is a monster company where all the major publishers, I think they work with all of them, certainly all the academic publishers, and they take everything through. So with my last two books, both times my editors said it doesn't need any editing, it can go straight to copy editing. So with this book, it went straight to copy editing. So they did the copy editing, they did the layout, they did the cover. But and all of that, the cover was a bit challenging, because I kept on saying I want pictures of trees, and what they were coming up with was not what I had in mind. So in the end, the cover is basically taken from my wood, and I asked them to make it more impressionistic. So the picture was taken in November last year. But so that was all pretty straightforward. That was a system. I was used to that. And then there's the bit that when you work with a publishing company, they deal with all the rest, and you don't have to. So it was getting the file ready for printing, and they were getting it ready as if it was a conventional printer, not as this happens, it's called print on demand, and the file didn't work. So then that took a lot of goes through. I mean, and because I'm a minnow in this major company, it's not like I'm working with a freelancer who turns it around in 2 hours. It was like 3 days. And then the final thing was, you can get the Kindle version for pre-order, and then the print book will only come out when you hit print. And the Kindle, it said file accepted, and it had my publication date of today, which I thought meant everything was ready. And then it turned out there was one more step that I hadn't appreciated I needed to do. So Saturday morning, I got an email saying, you missed the deadline. We've cancelled your pre-orders. And needed, so luckily the company work over the week on a Saturday, and I got the right file eventually at 2 p.m. I think I got the right file, and we uploaded it, and it all got done, and everything got done. But there was a lot of challenges. And then, when you have a book on Amazon, and sometimes you get nice pictures, and it's like, how do you do those? I asked AI, because I'd got no idea, and it said, you're doing it through this system, just go there. And it's like, oh, I see what I'm meant to be doing. But again, I had to learn to do that. But I love it. I love learning these. And the final thing was, Bookhouse Press didn't have a website. It had a website. It vanished. I hadn't realized it vanished. So I knocked off a website as well the previous weekend.
Knocked off a website. Here we are on StreamYard. You are extraordinary. You know, your YouTube channel and your followers are going crazy. So yeah, well, you know, it's brilliant.
Yeah. So it was a technical challenge, and I've got 3 or 4 more books I know that I'm going to be saying, and some of them are partly done already. And so at least now I've learned it, so I know what to do. And it's a really good example about learning in later life, because otherwise, if I just passed it all on to somebody else, I wouldn't have learned it myself. So yeah, it was a bit challenging, but I'm through it now, and I know for next time.
Yeah, and like I say, here we are on StreamYard again. Remember the first time we did that years ago?
But I don't think we've done StreamYard for about a year, have we?
No, I think we need to do more, Denise. I think we need to do more, don't you?
Because I just so love working with you, Sarah. And Sarah is like the best connector, networker I've ever met. And I just wanted to say this about Sarah. She phoned me one day, and I was early for an appointment for the gym. I normally don't pick up the phone. And I picked up, and she said something about she'd bought Find Work at 50 plus, and she'd always meant to connect with me. And if I hadn't picked up, and if it hadn't been early for the gym, we'd possibly have never met. We live both in the same county. We've met up quite a few times now, and we just work together so well.
We do really, really well, and I'll never forget that, because you had amazing people company. You'd written all these books, and I've worked in the career space for so long, and you were in my county, and you were this icon of mine and this mystery, and I was determined to get hold of you, and I did. When you weren't, I think you thought it was your mum calling or something. You had no idea. It was a stranger. So you wouldn't have picked up, but you did, and the rest is history. And I love working with you because you've got that rigor, that research, all of the things which, you know, I don't work on the surface. I've done a lot of work in this space, but you've got that structure and that rigor, and so yeah, we work well together. So wanted to ask you another question. Now I know we might have mentioned it a bit, but I've lost my place now. Talked about purpose. Yeah. Do you think belonging's just as important? We've covered this a bit before, but I just did want to ask that question because I think it's so important, the belonging piece.
Yeah, belonging. I think I've got a chapter, haven't I, all about belonging.
Yeah.
And I think connection, community, belonging, like who do we belong to? And in the workplace, often that's where people belong.
Yeah.
And they leave a job, and everybody says we'll stay in touch. And I always used to say to my clients, no, they won't. They say they will, but they'll move on. And you need to start getting some connections going, you know, beforehand, you know, back to the already 2 years in advance. Start thinking, well, what can I do? Maybe it's volunteering, maybe it's playing bowls or tennis or something.
Or it could be paddle, or, you know, whatever it is, sport or, or museums or anything. But yeah, it's really important.
Whatever, because I think we want to be connected, and I think there's more and more people who live alone, and they can be lonely. So it's who do we belong to? And you know, there's just so many. This is one of these areas I've had to stop following up on, about how social media is stopping us connecting with each other. And it's about, you know, meeting in real life and picking up the phone and finding your tribe. And it doesn't have to be a huge number of people, but, you know, just to have people that you feel you belong to. Sometimes the way of doing that is by giving back, you know, and I think that's one of the benefits of volunteering, and I think this is one of the really good things about if you've got some sort of mentoring relationship across the generations, because there's people who value you rather than you're just belonging because of some other reasons.
I think for me, I did work with a youth group in where I live in Gloucestershire, and I just came across all these amazing, extraordinary people who live in my town, and I just didn't know they were there. So from connection, you know, it's just, and that's really invigorating in itself, isn't it? And we were doing great work as well. And I think as well, living here, I think community is really important. So I just love walking into the supermarket, and even strangers, you're right, you know, that smile or that happenstance or the conversations you can have just by kind of, you know, being present, rather than just looking at your phone and kind of not being in the room, as it were, or not being in the supermarket.
Yeah, but I think it's acknowledging people's presence, because none of us know when we see somebody if they've not spoken to anybody all week.
True.
And I had to go and get something from the chemist, and there was a big puddle, and this older man, he just stood and let me get by because the two of us wouldn't go through. And I said, thank you ever so much, and smiled, and he smiled back at me. And, you know, clearly I don't know about his life, but I think it's little moments like that, and saying thank you, and just having a word maybe with somebody in the queue somewhere. All of those things can maybe make somebody's day.
I think so. And I think about my mum or my late grandmother, but it's, you know, that's how they lived, you know, their whole life was about being in community and saying hello. And, you know, that the postman and the, you know what I mean? All of those people. So you spent 7 years writing ThriveSpan. What do you know about aging and later life that you didn't know when you started? Do you think? I'm trying to think if we've answered this already, but
okay. But I'm living it. You know,
you are living it.
Find Work at 50 Plus, that came out when I was 49. You know, so
I can't see it. It's not in focus, but
maybe
this is my Bible and my work for you know, working with the over 50s. It's my Bible, you know, for the last 10 years.
Yes. No. That was. I'm not going to try and do the maths and everything. I think that one came out when I was in my late 50s. But this, as I wrote it, and I'm living and breathing one way about later life. So what I've learned is, well, I put the model together. I think that's the most fascinating thing, is what started as just a book. This is the beauty of doing academic study later in life, is you start thinking in terms of models and research papers. And I wrote something that got published in the NICEC journal, and I'm giving a talk with them later this year, because I've learned that it's a particular life phase, and it's hard. It's actually hard to say it in a really succinct way. So I think I'm just going to pause on that and say, like, read the academic paper.
Yeah, I think that's good. And what if there's one thing that you want readers to take away, okay, from ThriveSpan? What would it be? It's not the one thing. There's more than one thing. It's the kind of 10 things. We've got time for the 10 things.
The brain's going through. In the book, there's some early reader comments, because I sent them a draft ages ago, and one of the comments was like, this is sort of, in fact, I'm just going to read it out if I can find it, is it wasn't prescriptive, it wasn't filled with models, it speaks to you where you are now. And I think, and the reason I put the walking gently in, and it had about 7 different subheadings, was because that's what I want people to take away. This is not a book you start at the beginning and you work your way through. You can dip in wherever it happens to be. And if you imagine it like a path, sometimes you're going to bomb through because you need to get going, and sometimes you're going to go slowly. So it's a book, and I think each time you go to it, you're going to get something different out of it. And some of the gentle reflections, I started just coming up with my own responses to them. I was just sort of dictating them as I was writing sections, and then pulled them all together later. And I think that's quite useful, because I think if you capture your answers, whatever age you are now, and then maybe you read the book again in 3 years' time, you know, maybe 3 months' time, but if things have changed, and then see how your answers are. And I think that's the thing. It's a gentle book. Just open it up and dip in to what talks to you. What talks to you.
Absolutely. And I think that into what matters now. I'm mattering. That, you know, that's a wonderful word.
Because it's what matters now, but also mattering is a really important concept, because how do we matter? And often it's in relation to other people.
Yeah. But it's also in relation to ourselves. Do you know what I mean? We measure it in relation to other people, but it kind of starts here, really, doesn't it? Inside.
How has it changed? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm noticing there's some comments. Some of them are just comments, but I have got a question, at least one question anyway.
Have you? Yes, because is there anything else you want to add? Should we have a look at comments? Shall I have a look at comments with that, or questions?
Here we go. Look at this. And just let everybody know, we haven't used StreamYard for
Oh, look.
So yeah, yay. So the comments.
Shall I read them out? I'll read them out. Challenge of building new friendships 2 years in advance of retirement when you're potentially looking to relocate once you finish work. Any suggestions?
That's a hard one, isn't it?
It depends where you're going to live, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think, right. So I think if you knew that you were going, let's just take a place at random. If you knew that you were going to move to Torquay and you were looking to buy a place there, then each time you go, maybe you start going for weekends once a month, every 3 months, and there's something you could join. Maybe it's a church, maybe it's a theatre group, maybe it's the WI. So I think it's not going to be the same as living there all the time, but that could be something to do.
I think that's a really good idea. I think park run's another good one. So if somebody wants to move to where I live, I would say go and do the park run, because you see all ages, you see lots of different backgrounds, and it's just a really good way to get community feel. And then the other thing is I'm into biking, so I don't know, mountain biking, but something like that, that's my love, that's my passion. So when I go and do that, it's with other people who've got the same passion, and I've made some amazing friends there in a kind of new location, as it were. And
if you've got a different personality style, you're a book club, well, you might not be able to go every month to the book club, but you could go. Yeah, I would have thought at least every 3 months, go and visit the place that you're hoping to retire to, because you're probably doing it anyway to look at property.
That's a really good idea.
Right. So I'm just.
Oh, that thunder! Can you hear it? Did you hear?
I think that now. Right. So I'm actually going to just go through, because a lot of them are just comments. So let's just see what we've got. So John says, looking forward to this. Thank you, John. Sally, it's quicker just to put them on than read them in advance.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, Sally. Right. Love that idea of deliberately finding time out. Yeah, that's a really nice thing that Sally does. And I know Sally through LinkedIn, and I know she's done things with Travel Eyes. And I think that must be a really good thing to do as well, about going out and, being the sighted companion for somebody as well. So, yeah, we've got that one. And yes, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Oh, we had that one before.
We've had that one before.
Walking gently is so lovely. Sometimes I think it's just nice to, again, acknowledge people's comments. And apologies if your comments aren't appearing, but we have got one here from YouTube. Gently put, thank you, Anne. Is walking gently different to quiet certainty? Oh, what do you think, John?
Yes, I don't know.
Right, okay, and now we've got a longer one.
Oh, there you go, Denise. I think that's one. Yeah, they can definitely answer this.
Yeah.
Living through it.
Right. I'm going to just tell you what it was like with me, Ellen. When I decided that I was going to stop in to do clients, so I took my 3-month sabbatical, so that's pretty much July, August, September. And any ongoing clients, I said, if they weren't finished by the end of October, I would assume they didn't need me anymore. And then you get the inquiries. So first of all, I took all the options of contacting me off my website. I've got 2 websites. I took all the options off, and then I've had 3 people contact me who somehow managed to find how to contact me. And one of them would have been a substantial program, my gold program that I used to offer, and that pays I charged about £2,000 for that one. And I turned it down, and I walked off to Marks and Spencer's and came back. I thought, no, I don't do it. So Ellen, you've got to say no to the first one. And if it's £100, it's easier to say no to than, 1,000 or plus. But that's how it worked for me. For you, it may be that what you want to do is a period of time that you're going to say, okay, I'm going to stop on December the 31st, maybe, and you let everybody know. And then what is it that can fill the gap? because I mentioned earlier about I volunteer at the Wilson, the art gallery and museum in town, and I'm just getting so much satisfaction from being part of that, to spending more time. It's a lovely place to hang out, and there's a couple of other things that I'm involved with as well. And yeah, I wouldn't have time to do all of those things if I had clients. So there's a quote I read way back in my 20s. I probably read it at about 23, and I wish I'd kept the book it came from, but it said, "The space for what you want is filled by what you settle for instead."
So true.
And I've thought about that in a whole range of different aspects of my life. But if you carry on working, where's the new stuff going to come? So a bit like if you've got I'm just thinking of gardens, maybe if you've got a full flower bed, how are you going to let anything grow if it's all crushed in together? So it either let it go completely, or set boundaries that you're only going to do 10 hours a month, or maybe that's something to think about, Ellen. And maybe this 3 things into the future. And imagine the you who carries on, who carries on being tempted.
Yeah. And I think it's saying those no's, which is hard to do because we're in the habit of saying yes, but those no's create your boundaries, don't they? And you're absolutely right. If you end up doing all these things you don't really want to be doing if you don't say no, so you have to watch it. Yeah, it's really important.
Sally said, well remembered, because about the travel eyes. Well, I remember her talking about it because it's something I'd met the man who runs the company. I think his name is Amit, years back, and I often wondered whether it would be something I'd want to do. Now, John, I just want to say hello to John, because John got in touch and we've exchanged quite a lot of messages, and he writes really thoughtful comments on my Substack. So hi, John. I was going to message you after, but thank you for that. And so that seemed to be good. Well, with Ellen, so good with that one as well. So I'm glad I've gone through those, because again, as I said, I think people have commented, and I'm glad we've managed to do it and not had to have an assistant looking at all of those for us.
Yeah.
So have you got any more questions to ask me? Or
I think no, it's one thing. Was there anything else you want to mention? You've got your gifts, haven't you? So we've spoken about the 3 paths. What about the other 2? Would you like to do a reading? What do you think? We've got 7 minutes left now. Right. So
let me just explain something. So, goodness me.
Very impressive. I'm glad I'm not doing it's not me doing that, everybody.
Oh dear. So there's a page of my website called /ThriveSpan, and that gives you lots of information all about ThriveSpan. And when people buy the book, because this was meant to be my pre-order gifts, and then as I said, it all just worked out I couldn't do pre-orders, so now they're early purchasers gifts, and all you have to do is fill in the form and either write your order number or Bluebell, to be honest, because you're on here, so I'm assuming you're going to get the book anyway. So you just do that, and then it automatically comes through that you're going to get some extra things, and these are what you're getting. So you're getting what we talked about earlier, the 3 possible later lives, and I've done it like a PowerPoint. I haven't done it like, what a terrible use of English. Well, what I've done is I've narrated I created some slides, I've narrated a PowerPoint, and I think I recorded that at home. I possibly recorded it at the Wood. I seem to record everything at the Wood. But that just takes you, as I explained earlier with Sarah, it's a bit like scenario planning.
Really,
yes. And then I did a guided reflection from the Wood, and it starts off with birdsong. I remember doing that one pretty much on the Dawn Chorus day or the day after. And it's just something very gentle, very slow paced, asking you some questions that you can pause it and come back to. So there's that one. And the third one is The Life of a Tree. And this one came to me at the Wood. And I was looking at some dead bits, and I was watching the leaves falling down, and I was picking up some acorns. and because I'm going to make rattles out of them when I get some deer skin. So, but I was thinking about in the tree, sometimes you've got seeds, and sometimes, you've got saplings, and sometimes, you've got a mature tree, and sometimes they're giving you fruit, and sometimes, they're coming to the end of their life. So I wrote something that is done like the life of a tree. So it's like, in what bit of your life are you just beginning? So something new is starting. And then at the end, it's like, and when I'm talking about something ending, I'm not talking about your death, but I'm thinking about, and it could be work. It could be you stop working. So you stop working, so that's the ending. And then there's all the different steps in between. And I really like that. And I hope people will too. So these are early order gifts. And literally, I'm going to take them off at the end of a week on Saturday. I think that's the 13th of June at midnight, or as soon as I wake up the following morning, because they're to thank people for ordering the book early on. And I might sell them later, who knows what I'm going to do with them. But I never wanted this to be anything like a hard sell. I've been on too many webinars where 2/3 of it seems to be, you've got to do it now and all this urgency. ThriveSpan is not about being urgent. But what it is about is, is being more gentle, I think.
Yes, it is. And it's having more space, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, there's another comment I think that's come through. If you carry on working, where are the new things going to come? Oh, thanks, Ellen. I'm glad that's resonated with you. Yeah. Yes.
So what a day. What's happening for the rest of the day? What happens next?
Yeah.
You're going to go and drink champagne? Or are you going to...
Well, I'm going to the theatre.
Not in this weather, maybe. I don't know. Mind you, I love the different weathers as well. It's beautiful when the dappling sunshine, and I can't remember the word for that, but I love it when it's raining in a wood, and it's just, I don't know, it's different cycles, isn't it?
That's what I love. I love the seasons. But no, tonight I'm going to the local theatre to see The Beekeeper of Aleppo. The Beekeeper of Aleppo. It seemed like a fitting thing to do this evening. I didn't want to sort of just sit at home and drink champagne or something. I've literally done that before on previous book launches. And I did think about going to the wood and staying overnight. But I've got various things happening. I'm with volunteering and other things over this coming week. So as you know, Sarah and I are going to be at my wood on Saturday, where we're going to do a woodland gathering around ThriveSpan, and so that will be recorded, and so we'll be sharing that. But that's, the weather is likely to be throwing it down, but luckily I've got a 30-foot parachute as a canopy, so that's going to keep us that will keep us dry, but it will be very different than here. And I'm glad we're doing the two. I'm really glad that we've done this, and thanks everybody for joining us live. And clearly a lot of people will be on catch up, so I hope you enjoy it too. And thank you, Sarah. You were just the perfect interviewer. It always just feels like such a lovely conversation. I don't get any stress or tension, because I think it's all just going to work out just fine.
Excellent. Well, but it's a conversation, isn't it? At the end of the day, and I love, it's just, I don't know, to gather your wisdom is just so interesting, and you're almost a decade ahead of me, and I think that's, I don't know, learning from you and just all of the work you've done, academic and that lived experience you've got. I think the lived experience is so, you've done all, you've worked, that's so important. So thank you for sharing what you know.
Yeah, I think it's, we're all getting older, so we're all going to step into the phase, and I do think about when I see my mother at 93 about, that'll be the phase of life I'm going to hit. Hopefully I'll reach that phase at some stage. But we're at 2 p.m, so I think we say bye-bye to everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Sarah.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.